program, what this did is, as I understood it, is it took the WICHE and just simply added the recruiting and inclusion of veterinary students and those practicing veterinary medicine to be included in the WICHE program, repayment program. And so with that, any questions or comments before we start by any members of the committee this afternoon? Senator Steinmetz, do you have something you'd like to say? Please. Oh, sure. That's a great idea. I stand corrected. Let's take the roll. Make sure that we're here. Obviously,
right,
some of
Mr.
us
Chairman.
are here more than others.
Senator Guru.
Here.
Senator Hicks.
Here.
Senator Kinski.
Here.
Senator Steinmetz. Chairman Perkins.
It's debatable.
You have a quorum.
I'm here. Yes. Thank you with that. So back what I just said, any members of the committee like to have any comments on SF 93 before we open it for public discussion? Okay, is there public discussion? Is anybody in the room here to talk about Senate File 93? So we'll start with those who are in the room first, and then we'll go to anybody who's in the waiting room online, if that's okay. So what you do is we just come up to one of the chairs up here with a microphone, and you sit down and introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and if you're here representing somebody, let us know who that is, and then tell us what you've got on your mind. Okay. We're only going to take one at a time, so you can all come up at the same time. We're only going to listen to one of you at a time. You can take your mask off. We're certainly more than 16. We're probably 16 feet from each other, and you have a salad shield in front of you.
I do have a salad shield.
Anyway, go ahead.
I'll try my best not to sneeze. So, Mr. Chairman and the Senate
Can you pull
Appropriations
that mic
Committee,
a little bit closer, because the
I
people who are
can.
attending online won't be able to hear what you have
Yes.
to say.
Mr. Chairman and Appropriations Committee, thanks for allowing us to be here. I am Dr. Tiffany Healy. I am here as a veterinarian in Cheyenne, and then also here representing the Wyoming Veterinary Medical Association Board. We are here to present our case against Senate File 93. And I will speak a little bit about it, and then I will turn it over to my associate, Dr. Chelsea Krogan, who was a WICHE recipient several years ago, and she can talk to you about why it's important for her. So in regards to why we oppose, the job market in the state of Wyoming really is insufficient to support 5 to 6 veterinary graduates coming back to Wyoming. We have a very small community within the state of Wyoming, and there just won't be enough positions to allow all of those students to come back and find a job that will fit for how much money they need to make, that will fit their families to be able to find other positions within the community. And even just to find a job. It may not even be the perfect fit, but just even to find a job. I think that it's really important to know that veterinarians have a huge debt load when they graduate. The average debt for veterinary graduates as from out-of-state students, which all of our Wyoming state students would be, is $185,000. And that is before they get WICHE funding. That's the average student debt as for a non-resident student. Average starting salary for veterinarians is $85,000. And to be able to try to repay the debt that they have, in addition to having to repay the WICHE funding that they receive, will make a lot of students reconsider their career choice. Veterinarians don't get into veterinary medicine for the money. I think we all know that. But if we cannot live and having to repay our debt, I think that there's big concern that we're actually going to push students away from wanting to pursue a veterinary career. That will impact our university. It will impact our veterinary lab. It will impact the amount of veterinarians in the state of Wyoming. I will turn it over to Dr. Krogan, and she will tell you a little bit about her story.
Okay, before you go though, let's see if any member of the committee has any questions for you before you're done, Dr. Neely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just refresh my recollection how the program works now. Somebody gets a witchy loan that they don't have to repay, and they don't have to practice veterinary medicine in the state of Wyoming. Is that
That's
correct?
correct. It is my understanding that when the WICHE programs were developed within the western states, it was really to help students in those states in which there were not schools available. A lot of those programs have diverted out. And so right now there are 4 to 6 students. It depends from year to year how many students get WICHE funding. And they are allowed to go to certain veterinary schools within that Western intercollegiate education. And that is the best of my knowledge. I will also state that I am a new board member on the WVMA. I've only been around for 2 months. And so that's my personal recollection. And I'm sure that one of the other 2 speakers will correct me. But right now we are not required to come back to the state. And I just feel that if we are required to come back to the state, that or we have to repay funding, again, it will push a lot of people out of the profession.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up.
Sure, go ahead. Ask all your questions.
So why would the state loan money that would never be repaid what's in it for the state of Wyoming in terms of filling the shortage of vets in our communities? If people borrow money that never has to be paid back and they don't have to come back here to practice, I guess I'm just at a complete loss as to why we would even have such a program. But how does that help veterinary profession in the state of Wyoming?
I think that the pre-vet program within the University of Wyoming is strong. And even if we, and so if students know that they don't have the opportunity to afford a veterinary education, I think it will push students out of the pre-veterinary program at the University of Wyoming. I think that's one thing. The second is that that we think about 40% of students from Wyoming do return to eventually practice within the state of Wyoming. I'm one of them that I came back. And if we don't have that funding, again, it may just push us out of the profession completely.
Go ahead. Just a minute. Senator, do you have anything else right now?
No, I think that answers the question.
Mr. Vice President?
Mr. Chairman, what happens in this scenario you described? I have a friend that's in the program. He didn't start out 4 years later. Is under the current scenario, he didn't have to pay back. He came back just like you said, 4 years. What would happen in a scenario that we adopted? Somebody come out of didn't practice in Wyoming, then come back with their pro rata amount other than the 4 years that they were gone have to be paid back. All of it have to be paid back, even though they were practicing in Wyoming. How is that going to work? Because these loans don't get paid off in 1 or 2 years.
Right. I don't think that I completely understand your question, and I'm not sure I can answer it. I don't know if Mr. Mai would be able to answer that question, or if he understands. He does, so can I defer that question to him?
And then the second part of it, or another question I have, when we look across the spectrum, it's really large animals. We only have so many parakeets, birds, and hard to attract large animals, especially some of our small, just because of the amount of money that people can make going and doing small animals in a large municipal sector. So would there be some point in time when we would look at people voluntarily decide, what I want to do is recruit large animal vets back to the state of Wyoming. A reason a lot of them don't come back is because they want to go into small animals and go to St. Louis or wherever, because it's a lot of money to pay their loan off quickly. So would there be some mechanism that we can say, large animal vets, small animal vets, we need large animal vets back in the state. We would pay those loans, they don't have to pay those. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter. You could come back and be a general practitioner and do everything, which is what I'm trying to do. Poodles, parakeets. I guess I answered my own question.
Okay,
That was very succinct.
good job.
If,
Good job, doctor.
Yeah.
It took you a little while to get there.
It was my
Finally
vision,
came around.
my eyes.
I
You
did,
had me.
Mhm.
I did get a note from Karen, our secretary. So unless you turn your mic on, the people who are attending online can't hear you when you speak, committee members. Okay? So, and so for those online who didn't hear anything the vice president said, you didn't miss anything. But we'll have, so just Senator Steinmetz, you have anything?
Trying to turn, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I've got my microphone on. Can you hear me? All right. So I guess the question for me is, and we do appreciate our veterinarians and our vets and our veteran vets and all of the folks that have had to make budget cuts this year.
Mhm.
And so we've had to do that. And so I guess I just would like to know the difference with veterinary medicine and dentistry, medicine, podiatry, occupational therapy, physical therapy, optometry, physician's assistants, and all the rest of the folks that are required to live under these rules that we're inserting you into in this loan program. And so I think we're really trying to be fair across the board to everyone. And the idea of this program is a recruitment tool. So we do want you to come back to the state of Wyoming. And so I guess, could you help me understand why veterinary medicine should be exempted when all the other professionals here listed are not exempted from loan repayment or coming back to serve in the state? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Doctor, if you know?
Senator Steinmetz, I think the big difference really comes with salary, really. I mean, that's a huge difference. When you are practicing some sort of healthcare with humans, people can charge more, and they have insurance. And we don't have that in veterinary medicine. And so we can't charge as much. Again, I mean, the average starting salary for a veterinarian is $85,000. The average starting salary for a human doctor is $215,000. There's a huge difference. So I think that is hugely important on why. Do I think it's fair that we get paid so little? No, I don't, but I can't change that because people can't afford care otherwise. We do our best to keep care affordable for people and their pets. I think the other thing that's very, I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I'll come back to that if I remember.
Thank you. Anything, Senator Drew? Just a couple questions, Doctor. If you know how many are in the program now?
It depends from year to year. And I, again, Mr. Mai may be able to answer that question, but it's usually between 4 to 6. I know when I went to veterinary school, it was 2.
And how many, do we have any idea how many positions in the state of Wyoming are available year to year?
Actually, that was the other point I was going to make. So thanks for reminding me. I don't know how many positions are available right now, but I will tell you the last time I looked in our magazine that we get, it's on average about 4 or 5.
Okay. And
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important that, I mean, 4 or 5 positions in veterinary medicine range from large animal to mixed animal to small animal to I'm living in a community with 10,000 people and my spouse can't get a job there.
Right. Okay, thank you. Anything else for us? this
Not
morning?
for me. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you for coming over and making an effort to do this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we have a couple others look like they're anxious to come up and say their piece, so come on up.
Mr. Chairman, committee, thank you for having me. My name's Dr. Chelsea Krogan. I also work with Dr. Healy here in
Is it,
town.
you said Krogan?
Krogan, yep.
Okay.
Uh,
See if you
And,
can pull that mic just a little bit closer, please.
and as she mentioned before, I am a Witchy student or previous Witchy student. I graduated CSU in 2010, so I've been out 11 years now. I first practiced in Colorado and did come back, so I'm also one that has come back to the state. When I first graduated, there was one classified ad for Wyoming. It was in Pine Bluff, surprisingly. I ended up taking a position in Colorado due to more to mentorship. I believe we can understand that in medicine, mentorship's a big deal. It's also with us in the way that you're going to practice, for the remainder of your career and how you get started in the profession and understanding medicine and all the diversities that it comes with. So that was offered to me in Colorado, so I ended up going there. Then I came back here. But definitely on the scale of student loans and repayment and things, because obviously that's really what this is more about. My average, I think, is still pretty high. In my class was 135,000, I believe, graduating debt, and that was for in-state and or Witchy. So Witchy was paying obviously that out of state. There was 2 students in my class, I believe, that were non-sponsored students, and their graduating debt was closer to 250. And for us to pay that back, vast majority of my colleagues are, in some kind of repayment program. So we, with our salaries, are unable to pay our full amount every month. So we're in some kind of graduated or mediated kind of repayment program. So adding debt to that without the compensation of increasing our salary is even more taxing on us as people, as professionals, and not being able to pay our regular bills, let alone our student loans. And certainly that's a issue throughout the veterinary industry. But what Witchy does for us is allows us to have, Wyoming's being represented, Wyoming people being representative of the profession. And if we aren't able to do that, we're relying on people from other states going to veterinary school and coming to our state. And wanting to come to our state, and that certainly has its issues too with that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, doctor? That's
Not
all. I'll turn
unless-
around and find out. Any questions for Dr. Cronin?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Vice Chair.
So tell me, in terms of becoming a vet, you just go to vet school, or is there some point at which you specialize? Like at some point in medical school, you decide you're going to be an orthopod, or you're going to be a neurosurgeon or general practice. There's some point where you decide, I'm going to do large animal husbandry versus pets, or is it just one degree of veterinary medicine?
Good question. So in veterinary school, you learn all species. You can certainly specialize a little bit more towards the end. To have a true specialty, you can be board certified in a variety of different areas, radiology, oncology, just like any of the human medicines. That obviously takes extra post-graduation work where you do internship, residency, things like that. So you can specialize like that. I was a mixed animal practitioner. I practiced mixed animal until recently, actually. So large animals and small animals. It just depends on the area. But when you graduate, you do have the background to do either or all.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling on me and the promotion. I feel honored to be in the league with these two fine ladies. So, so I just took a moment and so about 85,000 is what you can expect to earn when you come out of school and get your starting out. So one of the other folks that have to repay these loans are occupational therapists. So I just took a moment to look up what their starting salary, the average is in the state of Wyoming, and it's $81,854. And so those folks are still in here, hard to pay this back if they don't come back to the state of Wyoming. Do you think it would be fair to require them to do that and not you guys?
You know?
I mean, as a general, no, but my question would be, what is their other debt that they're coming out with? Are they also in debt, almost $200,000 for the rest of their loans? Is it more manageable for them to repay that with that salary? So, I mean, granted, yes, it would be unfair to look at it that way, but there's a lot of factors that go into this too. And the debt load otherwise, that veterinarians incur is a lot more than a lot of other professions, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one question, Doctor, and thank you for coming today. It's out of your, maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone, but we recognize that. But it's important that we hear from people who are involved and affected by these programs. So we appreciate that. You know, as you know, the state is struggling financially. This budget has cut, we've reduced benefits to veterans, to developmentally disabled, to elderly, there's nobody who has been unaffected by cuts. At the university, if you've got an affiliation there, you know that they're reducing undergrad, they're eliminating certain undergraduate and graduate programs to try and do that. And so, that's obviously what's driving these things. But at the end, this particular program, and in particular the WICHE program, is intended overall to do, it kind of serves two purposes. One is we don't have a veterinary school for our students to attend in Wyoming. So, that's it. If we can help them attend that, that's important. That is exactly why we don't have some of these other healthcare, other healthcare disciplines for the human species here either. And so we try and help them provide opportunities for Wyoming students. The other point of that is that Wyoming is, there's other places it's a little bit easier to live than Wyoming. Weather, population, business opportunity, particularly some states are rural. Wyoming is probably more accurately a frontier state than even a rural state. But one of the other functions of this program is to try and create an incentive for individuals to come, particularly that grew up here, thinking that those who are familiar with it and may have enjoyed growing up here and have roots here, to return and provide services that are hard for us to recruit people to Wyoming to perform. And so we've got this dual purpose, and we've got to try and do that. I'm just wondering, the other side of it is there's nothing wrong with examining a program. Are we creating, are we creating a perverse incentive? Are we having the opposite effect that we want? But I'm just wondering, and you don't have to answer now, but or for anybody else who may provide testimony today, if there's a way, or you can think of a way to help us make this incentive work and function. We've heard significant testimony that, particularly in large animal veterinary, we have a significant shortage, and those that we do have are, many of are rapidly approaching retirement. And so we're going to have a very significant shortage in large animal veterinarians and that service provided. So if you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear them now. If you think of if you have any great ideas about how to improve or increase, how to benefit those incentives, how we differentiate between that, because ultimately that's the end. It becomes increasingly difficult to provide financial assistance to students who simply migrate elsewhere and go to work for a lot more money outside the state and still subsidize that. While, it just creates, so we've got to differentiate and maybe we adjust the program and maybe even bifurcate it somehow. But anyway, if you have any ideas about that, we're stumbling along trying to do the best thing for Wyoming and trying to still accomplish the goals of, in particular, recruiting people to come back and live here and provide. Hopefully, they can make it a decent living and and also provide that service to the state of Wyoming. So, if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear them. If you come up with any, please let us know. I mean, you can send us an email or give us a call. We'd love to hear from you.
I agree. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I have one more. Sir, did you want to come up and testify today too, or do you have more information, or you're just going to go ditto what they said? Oh, it's you. Mr. Mai, how are you? We're glad to have you today. Sorry, I didn't recognize his. We're getting older. I didn't recognize the gray hair, and then you took off the mask, and hey, it's our old friend Bill.
I hear you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just add a couple of things, if that's okay. From the university's perspective, normally we don't get too involved in bills that deal with WICHE. This is a special case for us, and one that I think is near and dear to a lot of legislators' hearts, frankly, and that's out at the state vet lab. So our vet lab is really dependent on our veterinary science undergrad and graduate students. And our vets who are out at that lab are concerned that this is going to be a disincentive to enrollment in those programs. In other words, why would you come to the University of Wyoming with the hope that you would go through this undergraduate vet science program and then get accepted into a veterinary school to then graduate from the veterinary school not with $135,000 of debt, but potentially $268 or more $1,000 of debt. That changes the math quite a bit. If you're talking about an $85,000 salary, which I believe is probably going to be more of a small animal practice type salary and not a large animal practice starting salary. So you're right, there are some different incentives here. Maybe they aren't going to work quite the way it's anticipated. It's a little different than the human healthcare in that the demand for the positions in our human healthcare is such a large nationwide kind of demand. That's where I think you start losing a lot of your students, and frankly, a lot of hospitals will pay off whammy debt and so forth, but you won't find that, I don't believe, with any of the veterinary science graduates. They don't enjoy that demand nationwide or locally. Secondly, I would say you are serving a purpose by providing this subsidy, and it's actually called a support fee for WICHE. It's the same as if you went to, say, an architecture school. You don't have a repayment requirement for the support fee for an architect, for example, in Wyoming. But we provide that to students in Wyoming through the WICHE program because it's not something that's an option at the university, for example. So it's a way to spread out opportunities to Wyoming kids, frankly, Wyoming residents. But again, I think that I've digressed here, but I will say, I think from the university's perspective, solely from the university's perspective, there is concern about being able to properly staff that vet lab if we run off a lot of our vet science undergrads and graduate students.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mai? Any questions for Mr. Mai? Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your comments today and your time. Karen, who have we got? Have we got some people in the waiting room?
Mr. Chairman, we have one person, and I'm going to go ahead and bring him in if he wants to go ahead and turn on his camera and his microphone. That's Jim Magagna.
I believe I'm on now.
Hello, Jim. How are you? Good to see you.
Just fine, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity. Jim McGaggan with the Wyoming Stockgrowers Association. Mr. Chairman, you may recall quite a number of years ago, as an industry, we came to the legislature and we really felt we were facing a crisis situation in terms of large animal veterinarians. As I believe you've indicated, and so has Mr. Mai, that's not as lucrative as being a small animal vet, and it's a heck of a lot more work when you have to travel to ranches all over the area that you serve. As a result of that, the legislature appropriated a sum of money, and I don't recall the exact amount, for a number of years for a program that was actually administered by the Wyoming Livestock Board, working with the state veterinarian, where the state provided stipends to students who went through the WICHE program to get their veterinarian degrees, with a stipulation that they would return to Wyoming and work for 3 years, specifically as a large animal veterinarian. And that program did bring some meaningful people back to the state that have stayed here. Not all of them remain in Wyoming, but as I recall, several of them did, and that certainly has helped our scenario out here in the state. So, Mr. Chairman, we would very much be concerned if this bill moved forward as it's been drafted. We don't have any problem with the concept that if the state pays for your education to a significant degree, that you have some obligations back to the state. And so if this program, either the large animal veterinarians could be once again funded with the program we had, or this program should be adjusted so that, provided they come back to the state for 3 years and practice, that then most or significant part of their debt is relieved. If they don't come back, then they still owe that debt back to the state of Wyoming. We think that's a logical approach, and one that will encourage people to come back to the state. If they graduate from vet school with a very large debt, as some of the previous speakers have pointed out, and there's no benefit to coming back to the state, and in fact, by going elsewhere, they can pay that debt off more quickly, that's not much of an incentive to come back and work in the state of Wyoming. So we would encourage a different approach than what this approach attempts to do, given the unique situation with veterinarians. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for your time. Members, any questions for Mr. McGagna? Okay, thank you, Jim. Thanks for taking time to speak from your palatial office downtown.
I would have been up there, but I wasn't sure just what time you were going to start the meeting, so I apologize for appearing to do it in comfort.
Why wouldn't you take advantage of the technology we offer you? So good for you. It shows that you're just as smart as I always thought you were. So good for you. Thank you. Anybody else show up, Karen? All
No,
right.
sir.
All right, we'll go ahead and close off public comment. That puts us on the bill. Member, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Bill's been moved. Got a second? A second from Senator Steinmetz. All right, we're on the bill. Discussion or thoughts on the bill?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Senator Kinski.
I don't know what the answer is. Every one of these disciplines is in short supply in Wyoming, and they all have the same issue, which is being able to make more money somewhere else, doing something else than what we hope. So the move back or payback has mixed success, but I do think that veterinarians need to be on that move back or payback, that same field with every other discipline. My brother went to medical school. We thought he was going to move to a small town, be Marcus Welby, and be revered. And then they
most people in here aren't old enough to know who Marcus Welby was, Senator.
They started recruiting him, and all of a sudden, he opted to just take out a big loan and pay WICHE back, and he went somewhere else and practiced. He could make it all break even. But the key is there, he had to do that calculation, and he had to either come back or pay back, and he paid back. So, and I think a number of graduates do that. So this WICHE program is not the answer. We still have these shortages, but I do think everybody who's participating in the program needs to be on a level playing field. So I'll support the bill.
Any other comments or discussion, any amendments anybody would like to offer? Senator Guru.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thanks. When we took up this bill, just whenever it was, December, I guess, we talked about it first. I think we all knew. Yeah, I think so. I think we all knew where we were headed, and I believe, we've just been looking at salaries for other disciplines, other professions, and they're not really all that far off. There's a little bit of a spread, but not that much. I think there are benefits to the program, the WICHE program, that be able to offer Wyoming kids a place to go to school and still pay in-state tuition, still take advantage of all the things that WICHE has. I also think that, it is, it's tough to ask everyone else to do something and then not ask one particular group to do the same thing, that they should have to play by the same rules. That given that plus our budget situation, I think dictates this. I wish it weren't so, but I know that everyone who's in the program now will be able to continue by virtue of this legislation. It doesn't cut anyone off, correct?
I'm trying to remember, as we went through this, the first time, is there, so when we have the effective date of, the effective date is as soon as assuming the government signs it, the effective on completion of all effects become law. And so this, but in section three,
Yes.
if I understand section 3, so anybody who's already started based upon with the understanding it has the existing contract, they get to complete their veterinary school before this would affect them. So it's basically everybody's been in the program now is grandfathered.
And that's the way I read, and I wanted to check with you all more learned people that I thought that's what section 3 meant, and if it didn't, we need to add something. But I don't want to break the contract that we've made with people that are currently in it, and I know no one does. But after that, I think that we need to just everyone play by the same rules.
Okay. Well, I don't have any amendments to offer right now, but I'm just thinking that there may be a more creative way to do this. So we'll say give this some thought. But anyway, with respect to that, any other comments on the bill or any other amendments? Let's question on the bill. If you're ready, let's go ahead and call the roll on the bill. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Senate File 93, Senator Grew. Senator Hicks. Senator Kinski. Senator Steinmetz. Chairman Perkins.
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 no.
All right. Senator Hicks, are you going to carry this one on the floor? Okay, we'll move this forward and give this some more thought. So somehow just even find a way to serve both those functions a little bit better. I don't know. Nothing else, maybe we split the blanket somehow. Well, yeah. We'll let the Steinmetz group. Well, Michael, why don't you go ahead and do it, Senator Drew? Senator Drew, you go ahead and do that, and we'll see how this works going forward. Okay, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the re-referral of Senate File 3. And thank you, Bill. Thank you, Dr. Krogan. We appreciate you. Just because we voted for it so far doesn't mean we didn't hear you. This is Landon, isn't it?
Mr.
I'll see
Chairman,
it.
as we get ready to hear from Senator Landon, I'm going to go ahead and bring the representatives of YDOT in as well.
Sure, let's go ahead. Let's give us a second. We're looking for somebody to maybe take us through the bill, and maybe he can. It says it's got an appropriation, but I don't see it. No, we're just gonna we're just gonna refer it back to the floor with no recommendation. So we'll call. We'll call this unruly Senate Appropriations Committee back to order. After significant discussion, some of it relevant and much of it not, we come to the conclusion that there is no appropriation in Senate File 3, and therefore it does not need a second hearing in the Senate Appropriations Committee because there is no appropriation to deal with. For those listening, when it's referred to a second committee like this, it's only to deal with the appropriation, and this committee has no ability to change anything or deal with other matters inside the bill other than the appropriation. And so with that, Senator Hicks, do you have a motion on this bill to send it back to the floor without recommendation? Is there a second? Second by Senator Steinmetz. Discussion?
Can we send it back with no recommendation, but with love?
You can certainly add that in the discussion. So with that, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. The bill is so referred. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the committee this afternoon? There being none, the Senate Appropriations